Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar presentation. My name is Ashton, and I will be your host for today. It is my pleasure to now introduce you to our featured speaker, Ben Noodleman, and he is our Technical Solutions Specialist here at Thousand Eyes. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items to be aware of. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the questions window. And if you have any audio issues throughout the webinar, please chat us for help. And just a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be sent to you in a few days over email, so don't worry if you have to leave us early at any time throughout the presentation. And as always, feel free to tweet us at Thousand Eyes on Twitter, and we'll respond to you as soon as we can. Thank you for your patience so far, and let's get started. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Ashton. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. To start off, I just want to go over, what are we going to be going over today? Just a quick agenda and a list of items here. So to start, I want to go over just a quick introduction of what Thousand Eyes is, some common use cases that I have seen in the past, 6 to 8 months working here, as well as I'm going to be focusing on a specific use case. How do we handle, specifically this work from home shift that we've seen over the past, 8 to 10 months with COVID. I'm going to go into a demonstration live on the platform. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up by going over, how do we support remote workers at scale in the new state of the world? Awesome. Jumping into things. Thousand Eyes, I want to just go over, why were we created in the first place? What was the use case in the beginning 10 years ago in 2010 when we were founded? What were we trying to accomplish? And the overarching goal of Thousand Eyes is to empower companies and people to see, understand, and improve connected experiences everywhere. Our headquarters are in San Francisco, and we were really born out of the fundamental idea that we are seeing a shift when it comes to, companies around the world. Before, this is the state that, we were seeing 10, 15 years ago, where everything was hosted on-premise in a data center. Everything was under your control. We could use tools like SNMP, Packet Capture, NetFlow to better understand the performance of our various branch offices, data centers, and the applications we're consuming and providing to our customers. Now, we saw a fundamental shift in how these applications, how these different data center sites are being connected. Of course, now we're leveraging the public internet. And really the fundamental idea here is the cloud is your new data center, the internet is your new network, and SaaS is your new application stack. So we've lost a lot of control that we once had in that on-premise deployment. So what do? We need to get that visibility back. That is ultimately why Thousand Eyes was born, to provide insight into these new third-party networks we might not have control over, but we are ultimately dependent on. Here at Thousand Eyes, we have 3 different vantage points that I want to make sure that everyone understands before I move into a demo. The first, and these 3 vantage points are going to operate as the data collectors in our platform itself. The first one is what we call cloud agents. These are pre-deployed pieces of software that are maintained by us at Thousand Eyes. These operate as essentially external vantage points that we can leverage today to better understand performance from different cities, different parts of the regions of the world globally, back to a critical application that we need to understand. This is going to provide insight into the health and performance of that application, as well as the underlying network performance that we see coming from that specific portion of the world. This is going to give us that external to internal visibility that would otherwise be very difficult to capture. Second vantage point that we're going to offer is what we call enterprise agents. Functionally, the same piece of software as the cloud agent. The only difference being we give you the ability to deploy this at a branch or DC location. As you can see in this picture here, the example we're showing, enterprise agent is located at a New York branch, at a Hong Kong branch, as well as a data center. With these internal vantage points, we're going to be able to do agent-to-agent testing, where we get a better understanding of your modern WAN, hybrid WAN infrastructure, or we can do enterprise agent tests out to the public internet where we need to get a better understanding of SaaS performance or external performance from your different sites. Finally, the last agent that we offer here is called the Endpoint Agent. This is the one that I'm going to be focusing on today for the demo purposes, specifically because this agent is built around the idea of better understanding performance from users that are not located at branch locations or DC locations. This is a vantage point that is going to live on an end user's device. Let me skip slides here. So this is an agent that's going to live on an end user device and collect metrics about their experience accessing different applications, whether that's external in a SaaS environment, cloud environment, or internal. This will also provide metrics about the health of the hardware of the end user's device, as well as metrics about the LAN performance, because we all know that once we've moved to a work from home environment, now we're dealing with hundreds, maybe thousands of different work from home LAN internet connections. Before I move into a demo, I just want to give an overarching slide around all of the different use cases that we handle here at Thousand Eyes. Because I have to be time sensitive here, I'm only going to be able to dive into and show you live, one of the core use cases that we're showing here. Just so we're all aware, though, we can capture with our other vantage points digital experience of employees and customers around the world, understanding and holding accountable the ISPs, CDN providers, DNS services around the world. As well, we have a modern WAN use case where we can better understand your hybrid WAN deployments, whether that's SD-WAN or some kind of hybrid mesh. We also have VoIP-specific testing if you need to better understand how voice is being treated across the public internet. We can provide metrics like MOS scores and get a better understanding of that process. Again, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to be focusing on solely the work from home use case today. If you have any questions, though, feel free to post them in the Q&A. I can get to those at the end and touch on any use cases we need further explanation. Awesome. So I want to highlight, what is the main problem we're seeing, with this work from home shift that we saw over the past, 6 to 8 months because of COVID. I just want to talk about, to begin with, what are some of the new problems that we're seeing from an IT perspective with this work from home shift. So some of the core ones that I've been seeing across my other customers in the past 6 to 8 months is really around this idea of when a user calls in, when a user opens a ticket, where do we start? There's so many different failure points that could be happening from their perspective. Is this a Wi-Fi problem? Is this an ISP related issue? Is there a problem with the VPN that they're using or VDI instance that they're using? Or is there an overarching application level issue that we need to be aware of? These are all the different problems that we're going to be able to handle with our Endpoint Agent. What is the Endpoint Agent? I just want to make sure we're aware, this is an agent piece of software that's going to be deployed on an end user's device. We support Mac and Windows today. It also has a 2-part install where we're also going to install a browser plugin. The browsers we support today are Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Microsoft Edge. Between these two deployment methods, we have the ability to capture your user's experience and perform testing at LAN level, both to collect those LAN level metrics, as well as to test the underlying ISP performance coming from that user's house. Finally, I just want to touch on the 3 core use cases that I broke down here for Endpoint Agent. Again, because this demo that I have for you prepared is specific to one use case, I just want to make sure we're aware of all of the different use cases Endpoint is going to be able to handle. So 1, just keep in mind that we are going to be able to test critical applications, external, internal, from that user's perspective. Also keep in mind that this agent is going to travel with the user. Because it's on that end user's device, we're always going to be able to do testing from their perspective. Last mile monitoring. What I mean by this is ultimately to better understand the ISP performance coming out of that user's house, as well as get an understanding of those LAN level metrics. Is their wireless access point being overutilized? What do retransmissions rates look like? Are they using a wired connection? Are they not? All of that information is going to be available on a per user basis with our endpoint agent. Finally, I want to stress the importance of our synthetics in the sense, we are an always on solution. We are going to hold historical data on a per user basis in your account, which means that when we are in the midst of a troubleshooting event, we have the ability to look at past performance to understand what good really means. That way, we can alert on any changes in performance that we see in real time. The general idea here at Thousand Eyes, because we're always on, because we're synthetic, we want you guys to have a proactive mindset when understanding your end user's experience. The general idea is that you should know before your end user when they're having problems, because we have this live understanding of what their performance looks like. Again, any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A so I can get to them at the end of the presentation. I'm now going to move into a demo where we see exactly how this endpoint agent is used in the real world. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 2 seconds here. All right. All righty. Okay. Awesome. So welcome to the Thousand Eyes test view. This is where we're going to be able to view, the direct data that's coming in from the different vantage points we've deployed. In this case, we're looking at one single user that has an endpoint agent deployed on their machine. The first thing I want to point out when we're looking at this view is that we take a layered approach to understanding the digital experience of this user. So you'll notice on the left side of the screen, we're not only going to look at the application performance coming from this user in this HTTP server layer, but we're also going to look at the underlying network layer where we provide loss latency and jitter metrics, as well as there's a whole separate tab for local networks. So I just want to stress that we're never looking at just one element of this user's experience. We truly are capturing every layer that we can that could result in slowness coming from that end user's perspective. In this first layer, HTTP server, right now we are looking at the metric availability. Ultimately, this is just telling us, for the specific site that we're testing, in this case, we can start to understand the specific URL that we are targeting in this test. But the idea is we are vendor agnostic. We don't care what this URL is. Ultimately, what we're going to be able to provide is an understanding of all of the phases required to ultimately connect to that site from our end user's perspective. So going through DNS, establishing that three-way TCP handshake, making sure SSL looks good, all the way down to making sure that HTTP response code we're getting back from the server is 200 OK. This is giving an understanding of, during this time slice, was this specific target available from our end user's perspective. We're also going to provide a response time metric where we give you an understanding of how long each of these phases are taking. So sometimes the site is available, but it's just acting really slow. We're going to give you an understanding of how long each of those steps are taking as our agents go through those processes to connect to that URL or that service or application. Another thing I'll point out here, when we're looking at availability, you'll notice we have several time slices here to choose from. It's very easy for me to click into a new time frame to understand how that updates all of the metrics that we see here. Because we're always on, every minute we're going to be collecting a data point here. Very easy for me to go into a new time slice to understand, okay, during 8:19 UTC, we were seeing a bad HTTP response code come back from the server. Moving forward, I'm going to jump into our network layer here, where we're going to provide an understanding. Instead of looking at things from a response time and the HTTP server perspective, now we're looking at things from a transport layer, layer 3 perspective. We're going to provide loss, latency, and jitter end to end from the perspective of our different vantage points that we're conducting this test from, in this case, a single user. What this is going to give us an understanding of, again, is any changes that are taking place in real time, this time from the perspective of the network. Now, in this path visualization below that you see what we're going to build out for every time slice, this is where we're going to get an understanding from our user's perspective. We're going to provide information. We're going to do a little bit of extra legwork on our end to look up, the location of this user. We're going to provide any relevant IP information as well. The purpose of this view, however, is to give us that hop-by-hop analysis, hop-by-hop visibility as we leave our access point, as we leave our gateway, break out into the public internet. We're going to have an understanding of all of the ISPs involved with actually traversing to get to. In this case, we can see that we're going into this specific AS. Again, we do not care what this destination URL or target is. We're going to be able to probe into these third-party networks and provide the visualization that you see here, giving you the ability to hold these providers accountable on a per-user basis. Now, another thing that I want to mention here and stress is our ability to understand historical changes. Now, just looking at a latency metric in this network layer, I can already understand that there were some changes that took place between the time frame we're looking at currently and the time frame in the future. Just to give you a sense, I will click into the area where we saw much lower latency times so that we can start to understand how that updates our network path. In this case, there was no, I'll be upfront, there was no ISP-related performance that did impact our user. Just judging this by the title, we can already start to understand that this was a Wi-Fi related issue. But I just want to stress that from a network and application perspective, we're going to be able to capture how something like Wi-Fi impacts our user on these other layers above. If we did see ISP-related issues or packet loss or increased latency, it would be very obvious in this path visualization. We're going to take a stoplight style indicator to tell us when we're seeing increased packet loss or latency. Again, in this view, everything is green. ISPs are performing up to spec. Jumping into our last layer here, local networks. This is all about, providing every metric we can, from the perspective of our end user's device that could be relevant this time from a local network's perspective in contributing to that slowness. So we're going to provide metrics. We're going to test DNS servers that we discover independently, providing a DNS server loss, DNS server latency metric. We're also going to test your gateways independently, providing a loss and latency metric. Wireless signal quality, link speed. These are probably going to be the most popular metrics in this view that I've seen in the past 6 to 8 months, solely because it provides just a direct understanding of what that signal quality that user is seeing during that time frame. I isolated this metric specifically because it should be very obvious the changes that took place during these two time frames. You'll notice before, when we were seeing those extremely high response times, we were seeing some lack of availability as well as increased latency times. That was during a time frame when we were only at 48% signal quality. Versus in the current time frame when we were seeing good performance, now we are at 86% signal quality. So immediately, I'm suspicious of Wi-Fi, but to drill deeper into Wi-Fi specific metrics, we will provide a separate tab when your users are using a wireless connection. In this view, we're going to provide metrics specific to wireless, signal quality, throughput, retransmission rates, roaming events, and any channel swap events that we pick up on are all the metrics that are available to you. What I noticed in this demo specifically was not only that the wireless signal quality was changing, but also that we were getting a physical mode change. So notice that we're actually using a completely different SSID, a completely different access point during the initial time frame. You'll notice the physical mode of this router is 802.11n, which is a slower and a more outdated physical mode compared to 802.11ac. So not only were we seeing a difference in signal quality, we can also understand that our user was actually switching access points, which was leading to that poor performance he was seeing in the previous time frame. So our ability to change what perspective we're looking at and then understand, why are we seeing these performance changes? In this case, it was a wireless specific issue. Again, any questions that you guys have, please feel free to throw them in the Q&A so I can get them to them at the end. But I thought this was a good introduction to showing, how we can move from an application-centric view to a network perspective, all the way to drilling down to something as basic as, hey, we noticed that you're using a wired connection or wireless connection. Would you please get a wired connection? It would make your digital experience that much better. Hopefully this was helpful. I do want to show you what this looks like, in an environment, where we have more than one single end user deployed. How do we handle an environment where we have thousands of endpoint agents deployed across a company? How do we get a better understanding of that overarching performance? So I'm going to stop my share and get back into our slides. Awesome. Okay. So I do have a couple examples as I move through here. I do have some examples of past performance that we've seen from our share links. However, I do want to show you how do we, once we've pushed out all these users, how do we better operationalize the account and consume all of this different data that we're capturing, right? Because there is a lot. We're capturing application perspective, network, as well as that per user LAN information. Dashboards, reports, and alerts are going to be a way in the platform where we can start to consolidate this information. What I'm showing you here are customized single-page views, which is really the purpose of our dashboard. We've built a variety of widgets ranging from map views that you see in this example, where we can start to choose what metrics we show in these more graphical approaches. So everything from the status of our agents pushed out worldwide, as well as our end user experience, is our metrics that we can show to give us that high level understanding of how users are accessing applications around the world and the performance that they're seeing. I have a couple more examples for you here. I'm going to flip through them fairly quickly. The idea, however, again, customized, hyper customized for the specific user or team that's going to be consuming that data. That way, we make the platform that much more efficient when we are, trying to understand the performance of several hundred or even thousand users. In this example, this is a VPN specific dashboard where we're, testing different concentrators from the different endpoint agents that we've pushed out company-wide. This is going to give us, again, red, yellow, green stoplight style indicators when something is wrong, pointing us in the right direction as quickly as possible. A few more reports I do want to show you here. Again, VPN Health, we're showing different applications that our users are accessing and the performance of those specific users. Again, a lot of flexibility within this environment. The idea is to create that customized single page view for your specific team. I do want to show you one live. I am going to do a screen share. Give me 2 seconds to pull this up while I show you our work from home dashboard. Awesome. Okay. So in this example, I do want to show you what this all looks like wrapped up. What I'm showing you currently is our work from home dashboard here at Thousand Eyes. So what this is going to give us an understanding of is, again, the status of our agents worldwide. We can understand in this map view below, who has their machine on and open. We're also going to build out this idea of an experience score on a per user basis. Again, giving us that regional understanding of how our users around the world are hitting those applications that they require to do work every day. As I scroll, we are going to get more specific in this example. As you can see here, we're now showing this experience score broken out per regions of the world, per application that our employees leverage. So very easy to understand, stoplight style indicators, which applications are performing well or better than others in different regions of the world. That way, we can point our resources in the right direction and at least give our end users the statement of, hey, we're seeing application level issues that are impacting all of North America. As we scroll here, we have also decided to provide some CPU as well as some memory load information about our end users' devices, as well as metrics like Wi-Fi quality. We're going to provide metrics about their VPN performance as well, when they're connecting to those. However, another thing I want to stress here is that there is a self-service aspect to our dashboard that we're looking at today. We actually expose the single page view that you're looking at to all of our employees internally. This gives us the ability, without opening a ticket, to say, okay, let me just get a better understanding of how all of the users in North America are hitting the application that I'm complaining about. Or let me check my Wi-Fi to better understand if that could be the root cause in causing the slowness that I'm seeing from my end. We found that this self-service aspect, leads to less tickets in general, creates a more collaborative environment when working with our end users. I just wanted to point out that that's how we run things today. We do have options on how we, better operationalize the endpoint agent data that is rolling into the account. Awesome. So hopefully that was helpful. I don't have too much more to share with you guys today. I think now is a good time to start looking at questions and fielding any of those. So if you guys do have any more questions, that is where I'm going to wrap things up. Ashton, I'm gonna pass things back to you to wrap things up here.
Awesome. Yeah. After questions, I just wanted to say as a reminder that you guys will be getting this recording over email in the next few days. And like Ben said, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask them now. And if we don't get to them, we will follow up after this webinar. Yeah, over to you, Ben.
I do want to share one more thing before I jump into Q&A that I forgot to mention. And that is specific to, here we go. That is specific to, where do we actually get our hands on the agent that I went over today? I just wanted to mention that if you go to our public website, thousandeyes.com, this request free trial button will give you full access to the platform for 15 days. Everything that you saw me go over, endpoint agents, cloud, enterprise, is all going to be accessible with that trial. There really are no limitations when you do request a free trial from us. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understands where we get our hands on this product. All right, jumping into Q&A. Okay, so the first question I'm seeing coming in here is the enterprise agent a VM? Where do we deploy it and how? Which is a fantastic question. Yeah, and the short answer is yes. The enterprise agent comes in a variety of deployment options. However, VM is definitely going to be the most popular. I will provide, I will jump back into my screen share here and show you all the different enterprise agent deployment options here. Let's do this. Awesome. So I'm just going to jump in here and show you all of the different agent deployment options for specifically enterprise agent. So everything from VMs, like you talked about, we also can deploy on some physical appliances like Intel NUC and Raspberry Pi. We can deploy on, Cisco ISRs, ASRs, as well as some Juniper containers. We also have a standard Linux package if you want to deploy this method, as well as Docker containers are going to be very, very, very popular as well. So between these methods, a lot of flexibility. Again, VMs are probably going to be the most popular. So I'm seeing a couple questions around, utilization of our endpoint agent in general. How does it impact performance? How much CPU does the agent consume? My short answer for you there is, the agent was designed from the ground up to be lightweight. We have done testing internally with our own devices, and we never saw a CPU load, RAM utilization, or even bandwidth utilization spike over 1%. So in general, not something that, is concerning. Another thing I'll be fully transparent about is our endpoint agent, does have some capabilities stripped out of it compared to our enterprise and cloud agent. And this is solely due to the fact that these are designed to be lightweight again, and make sure that they're not bogging down your devices. Okay, other questions I'm seeing here. So in terms of getting access to a demo, I'm seeing a couple questions about, how can I get my hands on this? I'm hoping that me going over the public site will help that. Clicking that start new trial will immediately get you access to the platform. So that is definitely going to be the easiest way to access it. If that does not work, definitely reach out to me. I will provide my information at the end here. So I'm also seeing some questions about, browsers. Currently today, our Endpoint Agent is only going to support Chrome, Edge, and Internet Explorer. There are some questions coming in around Firefox and Safari compatibility. As of today, full transparency, those browsers are not supported. One thing I will stress is that we don't necessarily need the browser element to do the testing that I went over today. The scheduled testing strategy that our agents take do not need the browser to conduct that testing and provide all of the LAN level metrics that I went over. So it is an add-on to our Endpoint Agent. Just keep in mind, it is not required to do the testing that I demonstrated today. Awesome. Seeing a couple questions about, how robust is your API implementation? I'm seeing some other questions around, what does your API give you access to? And I will show you exactly what this looks like. So if we go to developer.thousandeyes.com, this is our full API developer reference. Ultimately, the short answer is any of the tests you've seen me go over, any of the data is all accessible via our API. We can even do things like create tests, create new agents with the API, a lot of flexibility there. We can look into doing custom implementations with other applications that you're using. If you want to move, the alerts that are firing from the Thousand Eyes platform into another environment, that's all things that I've seen customers leverage before. A lot of flexibility within our API. I'm seeing a couple questions around pricing. So I'm going to do my best to give you a high-level understanding of how we license this product, and how we're ultimately going to be able to implement Endpoint as well as the other vantage points into your environment. So the short answer is cloud and enterprise agent testing is all consumption based. So we're not necessarily going to charge for every enterprise agent you deploy. We're only going to be charging for the tests that you're running from those different vantage points. The idea here is we want to give you guys the flexibility to say, okay, I want to be spinning up, I want to be running this test towards this application at this interval, but we're also going to provide that flexibility to say, okay, maybe we don't need to be monitoring this application as quickly in the future. Very easy to change those levers on the fly, because we're consumption based. Again, you're only going to be paying for the tests, for the tests that you're running from our vantage points. Endpoint is a little bit different. We are going to be charging per seat instead of that consumption model. So it's a much more straightforward license in the sense that, if you have 100 employees that you want to monitor, you're just paying for 100 Endpoint Agent licenses. And of course, once we get into a POC environment, if you do want to get your hands on this product, that is something that, our account managers, account executives, as well as myself will work with you to figure out, what is that magic number? What is that magic sweet spot? So that we're not over testing, we're not under testing, but truly providing the value that you're paying for with the Thousand Eyes deployment. Okay, one more thing I'd like to point out. I'm seeing a lot of questions about, specifically on that network layer, what exactly we're doing when we're probing those environments. I'm seeing a lot of questions about ICMP specifically. And it is something that's worth bringing up. When we talk about our endpoint agents and the network metrics that they provide, all of the testing that they're doing is ICMP based. So, when we think about ISPs out on the public internet, we do sometimes run into ICMP traffic being treated differently. However, one thing I'd like to point out is that our cloud and enterprise agents, one of the key bonuses that they're going to be able to do over the endpoint agent is around the network metrics and the network protocol that they used to conduct that testing. So they do have the ability to leverage TCP as well as UDP based testing when, performing their network tests across the public internet, which makes it that much more representative of real user traffic. So it's one of our areas where we are trying to make, the endpoint agent more lightweight. It can solely do ICMP-based testing. And there are a lot of questions here. If I don't get to all of them, I will be getting this list after the presentation. So I will attempt to respond to as many of these as possible after the presentation. Specific to VDI, I have seen this come up a lot in the past 8 months. Ultimately, what we are going to be able to provide specific to VDI deployments of your end users is getting a better understanding of that tunneled connection between your end user and that VDI front door. So from a network, it's all about from a network perspective, are the ISPs performing up to spec as we're traversing the public internet to get to that VDI resource? Specific to VDI, we do run into issues with being able to capture application level performance from the endpoint agent specifically. How we typically handle this is with an enterprise agent sitting near that VDI resource, doing its own testing towards the applications that your users are leveraging through that VDI. That way, we get both an understanding of both the network path to your VDI front door, as well as out from that internal vantage point to the public, resources that user is leveraging, cloud, SaaS, or it could even be an internal application. So it is a two-part deployment method, but ultimately we are going to be able to hold those applications as well as that VDI accountable. How do you collect device information and metrics at each point along the path? So that's something I attempted to stress at the beginning, but the hop-by-hop analysis that we do in that network visualization, one thing to keep in mind about Thousand Eyes is that we have no relationship with any of those hops on the public internet or any of those endpoints. We often say that we're vendor agnostic in the sense we're going to be able to probe and provide all of those hop-by-hop metrics, no matter what environment we're probing into. So just keep in mind that it is very similar to a trace route in the sense that we don't have any relationships with these third parties, and the devices that respond, we have no relationship with. So anytime that we do see a device that doesn't respond to our synthetic trace route, that is something that we're not going to be able to do anything about. However, typically, devices in the modern world will respond to our tests and provide the metrics that you saw me go over. All right, I'm seeing a lot of duplicate questions here. I'm feeling pretty good that I answered a good plethora of them. Ashton, I'm going to pass it back to you. I don't see any more questions that I'd like to answer.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys for joining today, and thank you, Ben, for a wonderful presentation. And be on the lookout for that recording in your email within the next few days. And have a good rest of your day.